Hello friends, welcome back to the CSE Lab. In this video, let us explore some few important terms about full stack web development. So let us see what is ES6 features. ES6 features such as arrow functions, template literals, destructuring and modules enhance JavaScript syntax and functionality, making code more concise and easier to read. What is version control system? A version control system is a software tool that helps developers track and manage changes to source code over time, enabling collaboration, versioning, and the ability to revert to previous states. Next, what is Git? Git is a distributed version control system that allows multiple developers to collaborate on projects by tracking changes in source code and enabling branching and merging of code efficiently. Now let us see how do we create local and remote repositories in GitHub. Creating local and remote repositories involves initializing a Git repository on your local machine using Git init and then linking it to a remote server such as GitHub with git remote add origin repository URL, allowing for version control and collaboration. Let us see some Git commands. Git init initializes a new local Git repository. Git status, it displays the current state of the working directory and staging area. Git add, it stages changes for the next commit. Git commit, it records staged changes in the repository's history. Git remote, it manages remote repository connections. Git push, it uploads local commits to a remote repository. Git pull, it fetches and merges changes from a remote repository into a local branch. Git clone, it creates a copy of a remote repository on the local machine. Git branching allows for the creation of separate lines of development within a repository, enabling parallel work on features or fixes. Now let us see something about github.com. Using github.com for collaborative software development enables teams to manage code repositories, track changes, review contributions, and facilitate communication through features like pull requests, issues, and project boards. Now let us see more about ES6 features. ES6 features, also known as ECMAScript 2015, include enhancements such as arrow functions, template literals, destructuring assignment, default parameters, REST and spread operators, classes, modules, promises, and enhanced object literals, all of which improve code readability, maintainability, and functionality in JavaScript. Let us see variable declaration using var, let, and const. In JavaScript, var declares a variable with function scope or global scope. Let declares a block scoped variable that can be reassigned, and const declares a block scoped variable that cannot be reassigned after its initial value is set. What is prototypical inheritance? Prototypical inheritance is a JavaScript feature that allows objects to inherit properties and methods from other objects through a prototype chain, enabling code reuse and the creation of complex objects hierarchies. What are classes? In JavaScript, classes are syntactical sugar over the existing prototype-based inheritance, providing a clearer and more structured way to create objects and handle inheritance through the use of constructors, methods, and the extends keyword for subclassing. Objects in JavaScript. Objects are collections of key value pairs that can store various data types and functions, allowing for the organization and manipulation of related data and behaviors in a structured way. What is destructuring in JavaScript? Destructuring is a JavaScript syntax feature that allows unpacking values from arrays or properties from objects into distinct variables, making code more concise and readable. Modules in JavaScript. Modules in JavaScript are reusable pieces of code that encapsulate functionality and can be imported and exported between different files, promoting better organization and maintainability of code. Symbols in JavaScript. Symbols in JavaScript are unique and immutable primitive data types that are often used as property keys to create hidden or project object properties, ensuring that they do not clash with other keys. Function generators in JavaScript. Function generators in JavaScript are special functions defined with the function star syntax that can pause execution and yield multiple values over time, allowing for the creation of iterable sequences and asynchronous programming patterns. What are callbacks in JavaScript? Callbacks in JavaScript are functions passed as arguments to other functions, allowing for asynchronous execution and enabling code to run after a certain task is completed, such as handling events or processing data. Closure in JavaScript. Closure in JavaScript is a function that retains access to its lexical scope even when the function is executed outside that scope, allowing it to remember variables from its surroundings context. Promise in JavaScript. Promise in JavaScript is an object that represents the eventual completion or failure of an asynchronous operation and its resulting value, allowing for cleaner handling of asynchronous code through methods like .then, .catch and .finally. XML HTTP request. XML HTTP request it is the response in the context of XML HTTP request. The response refers to the data returned from a server after a request is made, which can be accessed through the response text or response XML. Properties of the XHR object depending on the format of the data received. Asynchronous task in JavaScript. An asynchronous task in JavaScript using async or await allows you to write asynchronous code that looks and behaves like synchronous code, enabling easier management promises by using the await keyword to pause the execution until a promise is resolved or rejected within an async function. Server-side JavaScript. Node.js. Server-side JavaScript, specifically with Node.js, is an runtime environment that allows developers to execute JavaScript code on the server, enabling the creation of scalable network applications and APIs using non-blocking, event-driven architecture. Node.js. Node.js is an open-source cross-platform JavaScript runtime built on Chrome's V8 engine that allows developers to execute JavaScript on the server side, enabling the development of fast and scalable network applications. REPL. REPL, which stands for Read, Evaluate, Print Loop, is an interactive programming environment that takes user input, evaluates it, and returns the result, allowing for quick testing and experimentation with code snippets. NPM, Node Package Manager, is a package manager for JavaScript that allows developers to easily install, share, and manage libraries and dependencies for Node.js applications. Node modules. Node modules are reusable pieces of code in Node.js that can be packed and shared, allowing developers to organize their code into separate files and directories for better maintainability and modularity. Operating system. In computing, operating system is a system software that manages computer hardware and software resources, providing essential services for computer programs and serving as an interface between users and the hardware. Path. In computing, a path is a string that specifies the location of a file or directory in a file system, indicating the hierarchies of folders leading to the target item. Util. In Node.js, the util module provides a set of utility functions that assist with tasks such as formatting strings, inheriting from other objects, and working with asynchronous operations, enhancing the development experience. Events. In Node.js, the events module allows for the creation and handling of event-driven programming by enabling objects to emit events and register listeners that respond to those events, facilitating asynchronous communication within applications. FS. The The FS module in Node.js provides an API for interacting with the file system, allowing developers to perform operations such as reading, writing, and manipulating files and directories asynchronously or synchronously. Buffers. In Node.js, a buffer is a global object that provides a way to work with binary data directly, allowing for the manipulation and storage of raw binary data in memory, which is essential for handling streams and file I/O operations. Streams. In Node.js, streams are objects that enable the reading and writing of data in a continuous flow, allowing for efficient handling of large amounts of data by processing it in chunks rather than loading it all into memory at once. HTTP. The HTTP module in Node.js provides an interface for creating HTTP servers and clients, enabling developers to handle requests and responses, manage routing, and facilitate communication over the web. Building own API. Building your own API involves creating a server that defines endpoints for handling requests and responses, while consuming it entails making HTTP requests to those endpoints from a client application to retrieve or send data. RESTful API. A RESTful API is an architectural style for designing networked applications that uses standard HTTP methods such as GET, POST, PUT, DELETE to enable communication between clients and servers, allowing for stateless interactions and resource manipulation through unique URIs. Building an Express web application. Building an Express web application involves setting up a server using the Express framework to handle routing, middleware, and HTTP requests, enabling the development of robust and scalable web applications with minimal configuration. Now, what is Express? Express is a fast and opinionated web application framework for Node.js that simplifies the process of building server-side applications and APIs by providing a robust set of features for routing, middleware integration, and handling HTTP requests and responses. Installation of Express. To install Express, you can use npm by running the command npm install express in your terminal within your Node.js project directory. How do we create our first Express application? To create our first Express application, we should initialize a new Node.js project with npm init. Install Express using npm install express and then create a simple server by writing a script that requires Express, sets up a route and listens on a specified port. Application. An application is a software program designed to perform specific tasks or functions for users, often providing a user interface and interacting with other software or hardware components. Request and response objects in one sentence. In Express, the request object represents the HTTP request made by the client, containing information such as headers, parameters, and the body data, while the response object is used to send back the desired HTTP response to the client, allowing us to set status codes, headers, and response data. Configuring an Express application. Configuring an Express application involves setting up middleware, defining routes, and specifying application settings such as port numbers and environment variable to customize the behavior and functionality of the server. Rendering views using EGS. Rendering views using EGS embedded JavaScript in an Express application involves using the res.render method to dynamically generate HTML pages by embedding JavaScript code within EGS templates, allowing for the inclusion of data and logic in the rendered output. Data storage and manipulation. Data storage and manipulation involve the process of saving, organizing, and modifying data to facilitate efficient retrieval and analysis. NoSQL. NoSQL is a category of database management systems designed to handle unstructured or semi-structured data, offering flexible schemas, horizontal scalability, and high performance for large-scale applications. SQL versus NoSQL. SQL databases use structured query language and predefined schemas for relational data management, while NoSQL databases provide flexible data models and scalability for handling unstructured or semi-structured data. Migrating from SQL to NoSQL database. Migrating from an SQL to a NoSQL database involves transforming the data model, adapting application logic to accommodate schema flexibility, and ensuring data integrity while leveraging the scalability and performance benefits of NoSQL systems. Migrate Different types of NoSQL databases. The main types of NoSQL databases include document stores, example MongoDB, key value stores, example Redis, column family stores, example Cassandra, and graph databases. Neo4j, each designed to handle specific data structures and use cases. Cap theorem. The Cap theorem states that in a distributed data store, it is impossible to simultaneously guarantee consistency, availability, and partition tolerance, meaning that a system can only provide two of the three guarantees at any given time. Sharding. Sharding is a database architecture pattern that involves partitioning data across multiple servers or nodes to improve scalability and performance by distributing the load and allowing for parallel processing. What is MongoDB? MongoDB is popular open source NoSQL database that stores data in flexible JSON-like documents, allowing for data dynamic schemas and horizontal scalability, making it well suited for handling large volumes of unstructured or semi-structured data. What are key features of MongoDB? Key features of MongoDB includes its flexible document data model, horizontal scalability through sharding, rich inquiry language, built-in replication for high availability, support for indexing, and the ability to handle large volumes of unstructured data efficiently. MongoDB Shell. MongoDB Shell is an interactive JavaScript interface that allows users to interact with a MongoDB database, execute queries, perform administrative tasks, and manipulate data using a command line environment. MongoDB databases. MongoDB databases are collections of documents that store data in a flexible, schema-less format, allowing for easy organization and retrieval of information while supporting various data types and the structures. MongoDB collections. MongoDB collections are groups of documents within a database, similar to tables in relational databases that store data in a flexible, schema-less format. MongoDB CRUD operations. MongoDB CRUD operations refer to the basic actions of creating, reading, updating, and deleting documents within collections to manage data in a MongoDB database. Real-time database Firebase CRUD operations. Firebase real-time database CRUD operation allow users to create, read, update, and delete data in real time, enabling seamless synchronization across all connected clients. Express MongoDB connectivity. Express MongoDB connectivity refers to the integration of MongoDB with an Express application, allowing seamless integration with a MongoDB database through APIs using the Mongoose library or MongoDB's native driver. How do we connect Express application with MongoDB using Mongoose authentication? To connect an Express application with MongoDB using Mongoose authentication, you configure the Mongoose connection with MongoDB's URI, including the necessary username and password for secure access to the database. Understanding authorization using password OAuth or JWT. Authorization using password OAuth or JWT involves integrating password.js middleware to authenticate users via OAuth providers or JWT tokens, ensuring secure access control by validating the user's identity and permissions. What is TypeScript? TypeScript is a superset of JavaScript that adds static typing and advanced features like interfaces and type annotations, improving code quality, maintainability, and development efficiency. Basic types and any type. In TypeScript, basic types include number, string, boolean, null, undefined, and void, while the any type allows variables to hold values of any type without type checking, offering flexibility at the cost of type safety. Compiler options. Compiler options in TypeScript are configuration settings in the tsconfig.js file that control how the TypeScript compiler behaves, such as specifying target ECMAScript versions, enabling strict type checking, and defining module resolution strategies. Classes, interfaces, generics, decorators. Classes. They are templates for creating objects with properties and methods in TypeScript. Interfaces. It defines the structure of objects, ensuring they adhere to specific properties and methods. Generics. They allow functions, classes, or interfaces to work with any data type while maintaining type safety. Decorators. There are special functions that modify the behavior of classes, methods, or properties at runtime. Client-side JavaScript framework. Angular. Angular is a client-side JavaScript framework developed by Google for building dynamic single-page web applications with a component-based architecture and powerful tools for routing, forms, and HTTP services. Angular development. Angular development involves building dynamic, scalable web applications using the Angular framework, leveraging its component-based architecture, two-way data binding, dependency injection, and built-in tools for routing, forms, and HTTP requests. What is Angular? Angular is a platform and framework for building client-side web applications using TypeScript, providing tools for creating dynamic single-page web applications with features like two-way data binding, dependency injection, and a modular component-based architecture. Versions. Angular versions refer to the different releases of the Angular framework, each introducing new features, improvements, and bug fixes, with major versions being released roughly every 6 months, and the framework evolving from Angular JS 1.x to the modern Angular 2+. Angular architectures components. Angular architecture components include modules, components, templates, services, and directives, working together to build dynamic, maintainable, and testable web applications with a clear separation of concerns. Modules. In Angular, modules are containers that organize related components, services, directives, and pipes into cohesive blocks of functionality, helping to structure the application and manage dependencies. Directives. Directives in Angular are special markers attached to elements in the DOM that allow developers to manipulate the DOM or modify behavior, such as structural directives, example *ng4, and attribute directives, example ng class. Data binding. Data binding in Angular is the process of synchronizing data between model, component class, and the view template, enabling dynamic updates through techniques like one-way data binding, two-way data binding, and event binding. Interpolation. Interpolation in Angular is a form of one-way data binding that allows embedding dynamic expressions or component properties directly into the template using double curly braces. Property binding. Property binding in Angular is a one-way data binding technique that binds an element's property to a component's property, allowing dynamic updates of the element's attributes, such as setting the src of an image or the disabled state of a button. Class binding. Class binding in Angular allows dynamically allowing or removing CSS classes to an HTML element based on a component's property or expression using class.className syntax. Event binding. Event binding in Angular allows the binding of an event, such as a button click or key press, to a method in the component, enabling interaction between the view and the component logic using the event syntax. Two-way data binding. Two-way data binding in Angular enables synchronization of data between the component and the view, where changes in the model automatically update the view and user input in the view updates the model, typically using the ng model syntax. Angular services. Angular services are reusable singleton objects that provide specific functionalities such as data management, business logic, or HTTP requests, and can be injected into components or other services using Angular's dependency injection system. Creating services. Creating services in Angular involves defining a class with methods for specific functionality and then using the injectable decorator to make it available for dependency injection throughout the application. Creating API. Creating and consuming APIs in Angular involves defining backend endpoints, often with RESTful routes, and using Angular's HTTP client service to send HTTP requests, get, post, put, delete to interact with those APIs and handle the responses. Dependency injection. Dependency injection in Angular is a design pattern that allows the automatic provision of services and or dependencies to components, directives, and other services, promoting loose coupling and enhancing testability and reusability. Routing. Routing is the process of determining the best path for data to travel across a network from source to destination. Routes. Routes are predefined paths or rules in a network that determine how data packets are forwarded from a source to a destination. Router outlet. Router outlet is a placeholder in Angular that dynamically loads and displays components based on the current route. Router links. Router links in Angular are directives used to navigate between different routes by binding clickable elements to specific paths. HTTP client. Using HTTP client in Angular allows you to perform HTTP requests such as get, post, put, and delete to communicate with a backend server and handle responses. Observables. Observables in Angular are objects that represent streams of asynchronous data, allowing you to emit, listen to, and react to data changes over time. Pipes. Pipes in Angular are tools that transform data into templates, allowing you to format, filter, or modify displayed values dynamically. Angular forms. Angular forms are mechanisms for building and managing user input forms, offering features like validation, data binding, and dynamic updates to handle user interactions effectively. Template-driven forms. Template-driven forms in Angular are forms built using directives and template syntax in HTML, relying on Angular's two-way data binding and minimal component code. Reactive forms. Reactive forms in Angular are model-driven forms built using forms control, form group, and form builder, providing a more programmatic and flexible approach to managing form controls and validation. Passing data from parent to child. Data can be passed from a parent to child component in Angular using property binding, where the parent binds a value to a child component's input property. Passing data between siblings. Data can be passed between siblings sibling components in Angular by using a shared parent component as an intermediary, typically through event emitters and a service. Client-side JavaScript library, React. React is a client-side JavaScript library for building user interfaces, particularly single-page applications, by effectively updating and rendering components based on state changes. What is React.js? React.js is a popular JavaScript library developed by Facebook for building dynamic component-based user interfaces focusing on efficient rendering and state management. What was motivation for using React? Motivation for using React is its ability to create fast, reusable, and maintainable UI components while efficiently updating the user interface with its virtual DOM and one-way data flow. Key differentiators. Key differentiators of React include the virtual DOM, which optimizes UI updates by efficiently re-rendering only changed components, and one-way data binding, which enables predictable data flow and easier state management. JSX. which is JavaScript XML, is a syntax extension of JavaScript that allows us to write HTML-like code within JavaScript, making it easier to define React components and the structure. React components React components are reusable self-contained building blocks that define the structure, logic, and behavior of a user interface, either as class-based or functional components. Functional component. A functional component in JavaScript is a simple JavaScript function that returns JSX and is used to define UI elements, often with the help of hooks for managing state and side effects. Class components. A class component in JavaScript is a JavaScript class that extends React.component, allowing the use of lifecycle methods and state management within the component. What is render function? Render function in a React component is responsible for returning the JSX that defines the UI structure, which React then renders to the DOM. Component lifecycle. Component lifecycle in React refers to the series of methods that are called at different stages of a component's existence, including mounting, updating, and unmounting, allowing developers to manage side effects and resources. State. State in React is an object that stores data or information about a component's condition, which can change over time and triggers re-rendering when updated. Props. Props in React are inputs passed from a parent component to a child component, allowing data and event handlers to be shared and used in the child component. Components. Intercommunication. Components in React communicate with each other through props for parent to child communication and through callback functions or state management tools like context or redux for child to parent or sibling communication. Pass data from parent to child. Data can be passed from a parent to child component in React by using props, where the parent provides values that the child component can access and render. Passing data from child to parent. Data can be passed from child to a parent component in React by using a callback function where the parent provides a function as a prop and the child calls it with the data. Fetching data from an API using Axios. Fetching data from an API using Axios in React involves making an HTTP request with the axios.get method and then handling response asynchronously, often within a useEffect hook or lifecycle method. React routing. React routing is a library that enables navigation between different components or pages in a React application, allowing dynamic routing and the rendering of specific components based on the URL. Form validations. Form validations in React involve checking user input against predefined rules or conditions, either using built-in HTML attributes or custom validation logic to ensure the form data is correct before submissions. Posting data. Posting data in React involves sending data to a server using HTTP methods like post via Axios or the fetch API, typically from a form submission or an event handler. React Router. React Router is a standard library for routing in React applications, enabling navigation between different views or components based on the URL and allowing dynamic rendering of content. Building and deploying React app. Building and deploying React app involves using tools like npm run build to create a production ready bundle and then deploying the build folder to a hosting platforms such as Netlify, Vercel or a cloud server. Thank you. This was the revision of full stack web development. So I think it was very helpful. I request you to comment and subscribe if it was helpful, and express feedback on my video.